that means it's working. So, all right. Well, I guess we figured it out. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Thac0 Gamers, and we are going back to something that we haven't done in a long time, and that's streaming us talking about video games. This is actually how the whole thing started a long time ago with myself and Jason right here and Chad. And you guys are going to be one at a time. Whoever's talking, I'm gonna try hot switching the mic or the video between you guys. So we'll see how that works. I may forget, and while one of you guys are talking, it might just be showing me. But we'll see how that goes. So hello everyone, welcome to the stream, and we just saw Star Wars: The Last Jedi last night. We weren't at the first showing though, were we? We were probably second or third showing last night, but
yeah, the only 3D show that our shitty theater had.
But so after leaving there, and it's unfortunate that Matt, God rest his soul, wherever he's at tonight, couldn't make it because he had some strong opinions about it, but I kind of do too, and I kind of got the sense that maybe Chad does as well. But Jay, you said that you liked it, didn't you? So what do you think? What do you think of the movie?
I thought it was good, and we talked a little bit about this. Like some of the humor that they tried putting in, it just felt like really like out of place.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of like really quick one-liners. It wasn't like whole humorous scenes, but it was like I just kind of rolled my eyes. But some of the parts later on where they were trying to do humor at serious points, it got good reactions out of the crowd. I thought it was funny. But I really went into this movie with no expectations other than it's hopefully a fun movie, Star Wars, all that good stuff.
Right.
Consumers.
So, what did you think? Was there any? Okay, let me go back to you, Jay, real quick. Was there anything about the movie? They. Oh, and by the way, this is the spoilers here.
Anyone yes. Oh, sorry, hot mic. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyone?
Spoilers.
Anyways, so yeah, definitely spoilers. I put it in the thumbnail. It's in the title. Mm-hmm. So if you're at this point, and we're saying it here, so if you hear something about this movie, if you haven't seen it yet, and you don't want to know, go somewhere else. Come back later and check this out. But so was there anything in the movie that you liked, that you thought stood out, that you liked, or that you disliked either way? Jason.
I liked. I mean, it was nice to see Luke finally again. Some of the stuff they did with him was a little dumb back in the island, but obviously towards the end it got a lot better for me. I did not care for the Snoke thing and Rey's parents, the reveal, if you can call it a reveal on that.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just something that they're going to reveal later in the third movie, where maybe Kylo was just kind of blowing her off and trying to get in her head, say your parents were nobody, you were abandoned, and maybe find out in the next movie that something they did has some significance. But that was the only kind of real thing I really didn't care for. Was Snoke was played out to be this big bad guy, and then he's just sitting in a chair the whole time, pretty much.
He did, literally. Didn't get up out of the chair, did he? Maybe.
Yeah, he got up to walk towards Kylo when I think he was.
Oh,
kneeling.
That's right.
But
yeah,
so, yeah. I mean, but a lot of that too. I didn't read a ton of things on it, but it could have been just a lot of the internet speculating, building up all this hype. It wasn't really the movie. It's necessarily building up this kind of craziness around it. So maybe it's more the internet's fault than the directors. But
well, and to. I guess, do you want to go next, Chad, or do you want me to?
Yes.
I got plenty to say. Okay, so it's up to Chad.
I saw it today as well, so I've seen it twice.
Already?
my wife and kids wanted to watch it, so I went again. Yesterday, my initial reaction to it was negative. Not that I hated the movie, but I had some of the same feelings as you, Matt. Humor felt forced. With the death of Snoke, it's like there's no intimidating villains left here. Basically, Kylo in General Hux. They keep getting foiled by the Republic
What's
all
up?
the time already.
Mhm.
And we're not even to the third movie. They just outnumber them completely. So that's their only advantage. I hated the flight of Organa Solo. Like suddenly she's flying through space.
Like Mary Poppins.
But a lot of it I really think was I had very high expectations going into this movie. The reviews are crazy good, which I can't believe. And then you look at actually the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 50%. So
Yeah, they're ranking this down. This is down there
Right.
with like episode 1. I think is the only one that's ranked worse than this on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Right. But with my kind of anger at the movie last night, watching it tonight, I liked it a lot more.
Really?
Because yes, the expectations, of course, were tempered because I saw it yesterday. And I went in like, gosh, this movie really disappointed me. I watched it the second time, and it's like, there's a lot of good things in this movie. I love the dynamic of Luke and Rey. This great. In fact, Mark Hamill did a great job this movie with Luke. His acting was great. I love the Luke action sequences. It was really good. So, again, having no real intimidating villain going into the next movie bothers me. I do have some issues with the movie, but I went from angry, extremely disappointed yesterday to it's a decent movie today.
A decent movie like like what, Breakfast Club decent movie? I mean, what there's lots of decent movies that are not on par with Star Wars. You know what I mean? So
Right.
explain a decent movie when you're
A decent movie it's not Empire, but it's better than the prequels.
See,
Sure.
I don't know. When I saw the prequels, looking back at them, I'm like, oh my god, especially like Jar Jar. That was the only thing walking out of the theater for any of those movies that I was upset. I've never been upset leaving a Star Wars movie ever. Even when I went and saw the prequels, episodes 1, 2, and 3, all of those, I left there leaving happy and excited about where it was going to go and liking, other than the poor acting for some of the characters. Right. But Star Wars has always kind of had a little bit of an issue with that anyways. The Skywalkers are never known to be wonderful actors. But I don't know. I never left episodes 1, 2, or 3 being disappointed with the movie. I liked all 3 of those in the theater. I hated Jar Jar, but I liked those movies, and I did not like that last night when Leia, first of all, didn't explode when she was floating out in space, and then, like you said, the Mary Poppins thing where she just woke up in space and then floated. And even there are other things, and I get it. I mean, I understand that these are movies and they're not real, but even the sister that was supposed to drop the bombs at the start and everything was open underneath her, there was no atmosphere there, and she's just laying there with wind that doesn't exist and not choking to death, dying. That bothered me too, when they're not looking even at a little bit of that kind of stuff. They were in space. You know what I mean?
But maybe it was
shields. I think that's shield tech. Sorry, that's the same shield tech you have at a hangar bay. I wasn't really concerned about that.
Okay.
Like when you see them flying into the Death Star or into the what do they call it?
Okay, I'll let that one. I'll let that one pass. But
thank you.
But Leia, quote unquote. First of all, she got blown to smithereens when that whole thing blasted. I don't know. There's so many places I could go with that. But Leia, when I saw that, I was very unhappy when I was like, oh, that's how they're going to finish off Leia. And then she just floats back, holds out her arm in like a still thing. And You know what I mean? Brought her back.
Yeah, that was awful.
That
And
had she died out there,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is a cool way.
right,
Like
right.
it was they were in
And
a
it was
battle and
sad.
things happen. And
Yeah, it was emotionally tearing for me a little bit when that happened. And then when they decided, well, no, she's gonna come back to life and open her eyes and stretch out and then go to the window, and then they open the door of the spaceship and pull her in. That was dumb. And then
that was
the
worst scene of the movie.
yeah,
For sure.
and then Kylo, who supposedly the whole time is, and they lead you to believe this, that he's torn, but it was like the whole thing, he knew everything was going to go dark and he had no light left in him, supposedly, but he still couldn't shoot his mom. You know what I mean? When it came to it, he cowered it out on that. So there's no stability to his character at all. And I don't think that that's on purpose, like a lot of forethought. I think it's like 10 people all trying to come up. It felt like 10 people all trying to come up with ideas, and they all got their little sliver in for him. And it's just a mishmash of whatever his character is supposed to be. And, I don't know. And Snoke, there was nothing about that movie. Let me put it this way. The first half hour of that movie, I was really happy. I really liked it. And then, and you got to keep in mind too, the whole movie takes place in what I'm imagining is about 12 hours. You know what I mean? I mean, it's start to finish.
Right.
They said about halfway through. They've got 6 hours until they run out of fuel. You know what I mean? So,
well, and then someone else
I think it
pointed
was
out too
16.
that
okay, sure.
16 hours, but yeah.
Someone else pointed out though that it's like takes place within like 2 hours of when the last movie ended, or something. It was like some crazy short timeline. Then you're seeing this. What was the name of the damn big ship that Hux was in, or the other guy was in? That was, oh Jesus, start with the D. Anyways, like all of a sudden the First Order has this big thing where they didn't have it before, and the rebels are on the run. It was just kind of a weird time jump, I think.
Well, the thing with that though, the whole thing is supposed to take place. We'll say 16 hours.
Dreadnought.
Oh yeah. But the whole thing was supposed to take place in 16 hours or whatever it was, and Finn went from being a coward, escaping, doing all this other stuff, to where by the end of this, 16 hours later, he's willing to sacrifice himself. You know what I mean? That to me, they didn't give you enough time or anything to actually, that whole storyline with him, I thought was crap. And I get when catastrophic things happen in movies like this, where they're supposed to show, the heroes make it through, they do whatever. But like when that whole thing exploded and all the stormtroopers blew away or whatever, when they were down on the ground, and then everything is totally destroyed, and then Finn and what's her face are still just kind of standing there. They're like, oh hey, everything got blown away and we don't even have a scratch on us. You know what I mean? There was just too much of that. And the way Snoke died, he should have known if he was a badass like he supposedly was.
Right.
And who the hell was this guy that 20 years after the Return of the Jedi, or 30 years or whatever, however long that was? I want to know how in the hell the whole First Order thing happened. How did he get this? How did he amass all of this? Nothing was explained. And it's just, oh, well, you've taken everything down. Well, guess what? There's just a whole nother thing you guys didn't know about this whole First Order, and they were just moving in ready to take over all this. I don't know. I was hoping there would be more. The things that I was hoping for out of this movie was to find out about Rey, which they just flushed that down the toilet, and to find out about Snoke. Really were the two things I was most wanting to know, and both of those were trashed. So
their reveal with Rey was on purpose for sure. I don't think they're going to change it. I think what they're trying to tell us, the audience, is that anybody can have force powers. You look at the kid at the very end scene, the little orphan working in the stable. grabs his broom by using the Force. So I think they're trying to kill the, oh, you have to have some great bloodline to be some powerful Force master. They wanted Rey to be the every person that could become a Jedi and a powerful one at that. As far as Snoke, I completely agree. We suddenly are void of that master manipulator villain.
And now we just have a crybaby, whiny loser.
Right.
I like Kylo. I know you guys don't. For some reason I do.
No. I like Kylo as a second in command or a lieutenant, not the guy pulling the strings.
He's not even capable of that. He's so he can't be calculated. He's incapable of being calculated at all.
Emotionally unbalanced.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I see. Do you want to read off some of the comments in there, Jay? I see we've got some comments rolling through.
Oh,
I'll kind of work backwards here. Nathan Regular said he asked if it's as bad as the prequels, and I said I don't think it's bad at all.
In my opinion, it's not.
It's cheesy. I mean, I don't know.
See, now you're saying this, but here's my opinion on that. In 10 or 15 years, when we look back on this, I think it will be right down with the prequels. Some of the comedy was as cheesy, and like I said, the first half hour of that movie was badass. Like those were the coolest space battles in any of the Star Wars movies, and the 3D looked really great. And I usually don't care about that even in movies, and I was actually pretty impressed with that the whole way through. But as far as plot and storyline, all of that, I think tanked about halfway through, and only thing I was interested in was Luke. And I did think it was cool at the end how Luke did what he did at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty cool. And there are definitely scenes in this movie that stand out as great Star Wars scenes. There are scenes that still stand out as great Star Wars scenes, like when they Nathan, you're aware that there were spoilers in this, just so you know. I say, see, he's saying he has not seen it yet. So, and it is. I agree, Jay. It is definitely worth seeing in the theater. But
oh yeah, for sure.
There are scenes like when they take out. What do you say the name of that ship was again? The
Dreadnought.
Dreadnought. Is that what they went through at the very end of that when they took that out? Is that what that ship was?
The unnecessary suicide.
Yeah.
Mission.
Well, when the whole thing went quiet, the whole theater went quiet. That was badass. That was badass.
But to me, that's a plot hole too. Why hasn't about 1,000 other ship pilots that have been in trouble not used this technique against spoilers? Using a ship going into hyperspace to destroy about a dozen.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that would have been used before. Great idea, but a little late to the party.
Like last night, I got home and we got home late. I mean, like 1:30. I couldn't sleep, so I was laying in bed and I was like searching for articles on like spoilers or like plot holes and stuff. And one of the things they brought up was like one of them was like why in the hell did they try to like deceive Poe? You know, the admiral or whatever.
Yeah, that was weird too. Like she
like you thought she was a bad person or something, or trying to subvert their.
Here's the thing: when something like, and I totally agree, because that's something that felt forced just to create suspense on our part without finding a legitimate way to work it into the plot. There was no reason when he said, hey, what's the plan? We're all going to die unless you let me know what the hell the plan is. And she's like, nah, we're just going to die. Right. You know what I mean? You know he's going to... People died. He actually thought her plan was good. He sent people out and let people potentially die because he didn't think she was doing anything. And there was no justification for her character to do that at all.
I think that's what it's setting him up. And I'll go back to a comment that someone made a little bit ago, but I think it's setting Poe up. Poe is going to be the new leader of the Resistance or Rebels or whatever. So,
Poe definitely had a character building arc in this movie. It was obvious. They didn't hide it at all.
Right.
You know, he was the swashbuckling fighter pilot at the beginning who learned that it's not always worth sacrificing lives for an early victory.
Right. So now, were there, as far as, you know, what did you guys think were like standout scenes in the movie that you guys did like? That like you look back on and you're like, yeah, that was cool.
Luke walking out to face Kylo Ren with all those AT-ATs against the, I don't know if they're still called AT-ATs. I don't know if they changed the name, but with the sunset behind them, and
that was cool.
That one guy versus all. I need that in poster edition.
I know.
Hanging on a wall somewhere. That was gorgeous.
It was
epic.
Cool.
The coolest thing I think I've ever seen in any of the movies. It was amazing.
The set piece, I mean, that was awesome. And the one thing I just kept thinking about is when they all fired on him and he walks out and he just brushes his shoulder off. I was like, I kept thinking about that all day today. I was like, that was totally perfect. Yeah, that was one of the things where humor was done well and it wasn't forced in there.
Right. That was my favorite scene. I liked the Luke and Rey scenes a lot. It was nice seeing Yoda come back, and most of my positives really dealt with Luke and Rey. Honestly.
I agree.
I think that was the best part of the movie.
Although Luke's training or lack thereof, Matt and I were talking about this. Did he ever tell her the third thing? I don't remember it, and Matt doesn't either, but maybe it was there because he said there's 3 things I'm gonna teach you.
No.
Do you guys?
No, not that I remember. What I will say is I do hope they use him in some form in the next movie to perhaps train, because even when he talked to Yoda at the end, Yoda was like, go get her and train her. And that's before he decided to go face Kylo, and he ended up dying, basically, we think. So
dying the way Obi-Wan
I hope he comes
dies,
back.
Basically. Yeah, and I feel like they will. I don't know that they're gonna take, and who knows, maybe they will. God knows what they're gonna do, actually.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it doesn't feel right to take him out of the story completely. And even Obi-Wan showed up plenty of times after he was gone. You know what I mean? So I don't know that I don't know that he's gonna be completely written out as of yet. I think if it was up to Mark Hamill, the whole movie would still be about him, though.
But I would totally worth it. I mean, I thought he was the best part of that, and
sure.
I grew up like Luke. I remember having a green blow up lightsaber when I was a kid, and like that was my favorite thing. Like Luke was like I guess my childhood hero other than Spider-Man, and like it took so long for all these movies to get back to him, and it was so good. Now it's like over, and I guess it's kind of a good thing, and they're not drawing it out. But still, I wish he would have continued on somehow. Maybe it will, but obviously it'll be in a different form or something.
And I think Jay, you making that point kind of brings me back around to why I think there's a lot of negative feedback from some of the fans out there. When I look at how I grew up as a Star Wars fan, a fanboy, how much I loved the first trilogy, and they finally got to Return of the Jedi, and you saw that happy ending. Leia and Han were together. Luke saved, redeemed his father, beat the Emperor. You see fireworks above Endor from the X-Wings. And you're like, God, a happy ending for them. They've put a huge dent in the Empire. Thank goodness. Cut 30 years later. Han and Leia aren't together. Luke screwed up the first chance to try to train a Jedi, and he spent the rest of his adult life as a hermit on another planet. It's like this happy ending that a lot of people probably had in their head of how the story may have ended, especially because there were other books written and sanctioned by Lucas at the time.
Right. Yep.
It's like it all was shit on. And a lot of people are angry about that. And that comes as a negative to the movie. And that's not the writer's fault. But he needs to know those expectations are out there.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think a lot of people were angry about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The Skywalkers are kind of getting stepped on. And a lot of people love the Skywalkers.
Okay, so there's one thing that that makes me think of here from the movie, or just in general when talking about the Jedi. They're perpetuating this thing of everything. Matt and I were talking about this too, and it's basically all the Jedi do is train the galaxy's worst mass murderers. That's the only thing they do. They really are the worst thing to happen to the galaxy. If they didn't,
that was Luke's point.
I know.
Luke made that point in the movie.
I know, and it's true.
We're a bunch of hypocrites, which I really liked, actually. He basically called themselves out. He's like, hey, man, the Jedi, we're a bunch of hypocrites. We trained the Emperor, cost the galaxy its peace. So, I mean, that was interesting.
That's why abstinence never works.
So, are there any more comments on there, Jay? You wanted
to? Someone said, like, how is Lucas feeling? And I was like, he's feeling probably super rich. But and I laugh at that because some of the people I saw last night were like, oh, they should give the franchise back to Lucas or something. Like, I think people forget that Lucas ruined the prequels.
People couldn't wait to get Star Wars out of Lucas's hands.
You know,
at the time.
And he only directed the first episode, right? Or episode.
He wrote the screenplays. He wasn't directing, but he wrote the screenplays.
But he only directed one movie and stuff. So Lucas gave up the ghost a long time ago, in my opinion.
You know, I think that what's most disappointing for me about this movie, and I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to take my kids, and Sarah wants to see it, so we're going to go watch it, and I probably will like it better.
Yeah,
not coming out. I was, honest to God, expecting this movie to be my favorite in the series, like the best one to date so far for me. I was expecting this because I loved 7, even though there were things about it that I'm like, you know, whatever. I mean, nothing is perfect, but 7 had the perfect, other than the fact that it was another Death Star, which Star Wars is kind of Death Starred out. Right. You know what I mean? But other than that, it had a really seemingly cool, powerful villain that flies off the deep end with some mysterious guy that, you know, was controlling him or, you know, manipulating him or whatever he was doing. It had this new Jedi. She doesn't have to be a Skywalker or a Solo. I'm okay with her not having the lineage. That's not a problem with me, but there was just 7. I was thrilled that it was out of Lucas's hands and that Disney had this, and with J.J. Abrams, the work that he did on it, just everything. I was really, really, really excited for 8, and that is part of the reason that I felt I was so let down. But going back to what we were saying earlier, when someone asked if this was as bad as the prequels, granted, I was younger. You know, I was in, what were we? I don't know, 20 probably when the prequels came out. Maybe I was still in high school, but um, I went and saw those and left the theater for each one of those feeling satisfied. I never left the theater on those like disappointed in the movies, and I wonder what hindsight is going to show for this one. There is a really bizarre possibility that they can with 9 redeem some of the things with this. If they with really creative storytelling. You know what I mean? But I don't know that this in hindsight is not going to end up being the the low point of the series for Star Wars.
I think that's.
I don't think so.
So
Yeah.
you're wrong.
You're wrong, Matt.
Back to the
Come on.
comments. This happened a little while ago. We were talking about Leia, and Indy Hidden said, "Remember, episode 9 was supposed to be based on Leia."
I know that's something that's sad, and one of the reasons I kind of think they probably should have went through with Leia not making it out of this movie, and then maybe change direction, and Luke could have somehow played a larger role in the next movie. Because that was their initial plan, was to be Solo focused on the first, Luke focused on the second, and Leia on the third. So
Yeah, that I don't know. Leia, honestly, in this movie didn't do much for me. I don't know. It's probably a bad opinion to have, but I didn't really care for her in this movie so much. I don't know.
well, she didn't have a big part. I mean, she was a symbol for the crew, but she was hurt for half of it after her amazing flight through space. And
Another thing,
She
if
did cheat code.
Jedi could handle their spaceships blowing up and then flying through space afterwards, I mean, if that's something that they can do, she's probably the most powerful Jedi on the face of the planet or the galaxy. You know what I mean? For what she was able to do.
And one thing kind of slid under the table too. My man Akbar died there, and they barely said anything about it.
My man.
It's like it's a trap.
This one is a trap.
Is dead. And one lady mentions it. Oh, Akbar and the rest of the crew's dead.
Yeah, see, I heard that. It didn't even register. Like, it's like, okay.
It's Akbar.
Well, of course they're dead. There's like 4 people left. They were blowing up those ships at the end. There's nobody left.
That was really weird. It's like they started out with 400 people, and in the course of the last 15 minutes, in the background, you see all these transport ships getting blown up as they're talking. So it's like they're literally down to a half a load in the Millennium Falcon that's going to take down the First Order.
There's Poe, Rey, Chewie, a couple of droids. Leia's obviously not even going to make it now. So, you know what I mean?
Bunch of porgs in the Millennium.
Oh yeah.
Which they were fun.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be cheesy. It wasn't bad. I liked the scene with Chewie at the campfire there.
Eating the
Yes. He was taking a bite. He was looking over at the live porg, looking at him. A lot of the stuff was good, but I thought the Rebels Resistance was just kind of an awful part of the movie. I mean, there was no, if it was done to feel sympathy for them or something, I don't know, but it was just like, they're freaking useless. I mean, how are they going to go against an organized government and they can't figure out their fuel consumption and have contingency plans and everything else.
And if they do have contingency plans, they don't bother to tell anybody what those plans are. It's just limited to one person. Yeah.
And then I guess it was a chance to introduce Luke back into the mainstream, but when they finally got to the Rebel base on, was it Crate was the planet?
I don't know, Hoth 2.
I think so.
It was Crate.
Oh, that's right. It was Salt. It was the Salt planet.
It was Salt. That's no.
Sidebar, they didn't show a crate dragon. I thought that would have been a good opportunity to show a crate dragon and crate pearls and part of making the lightsabers, but that's a kind of a nerd thing.
But are they really from there?
Yeah, the lightsabers are made with a crate dragon pearl.
Right, but I thought crate dragons were still on Tatooine.
I don't know if there's
That's where the crate dragon skeletons were.
I will research that. But when they're at the rebel base or wherever they call it, and they get the doors locked and they send the distress signal, like nobody responds.
Nobody shows up.
I was like, could they be any more pathetic? Or like, that would have been a good opportunity to show, hey, there's people on their way. They may not make it in time, but maybe after.
Again, though, the Return of the Jedi ended on a happy, and we come back to join the folks, and they're miserable, and they've completely failed. Everything they've done.
They've screwed up everything.
Yes.
The only thing he had to do was train a relative.
Right. And that's where, to me, they didn't have to start again as a ragtag
at
rebellion.
The bottom. I agree.
It could have been still at war or something. It didn't have to go back to the start. There could have been some positive momentum and still come back to the series.
It would have been nice. Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing to add to that. I totally agree. 100%.
Well, then I'll drop the mic. I don't know.
Indie Hidden is saying that crate dragons are from Tatooine.
Yeah, so how they are spelling it Krayt is correct. Crate was also the planet that they were on there, but it's Crait because that's not confusing at all.
Oh, geez. But why couldn't they name it something else?
Crate is a small mineral planet located in a remote section of the galaxy's outer rim territories.
After Jar Jar left the series, it tanked. There's a really good YouTube conspiracy theory on Star Wars about how Jar Jar is actually the mastermind behind everything.
Right.
And
he's the Master Sith.
It is so funny, dude. Like, and it fits well enough. Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what you guys think after you see it a second time. I really think my extra high expectations, especially after the critics all went crazy, they're saying, oh, it's the next Empire. So I went in expecting the next Empire. It was not.
No.
But when I saw it the second time, thinking, gosh, that was horrible. And then when I watched, it's like, no, it's fine. It has its issues, but it's in my opinion, it was a decent Star Wars movie. The tone's different. Some people are going to hate it, like you, Matt. It's a little more like the comic book movie. There's not that sense of dread, and it's not as serious. They have that comedy,
even though this is the worst slaughter ever of everyone, and it's like we were talking the other day. There is. I don't have a problem with comic booky or cartoony, but you can have grit to it. There's a different when I say cartoony, and we talk about something like the Batman animated series. That is a cartoon, but that was totally intended for kids that had grit. That was an excellent show. Still to this day is really, really good. That's a lot different than the Smurfs or, some Saturday morning cartoon or SpongeBob or something like that. You know what I mean? And that's part of my issue with where a lot of the Marvel movies are going, and just when Disney gets a hold of stuff in general. But I don't know, man. I didn't like it. I'm going to watch it again, and I will let you know after I watch it. And anyone who's watching this, anyone who's Alderaan would like a word with you. Okay, yes, that's true.
Good point. True.
But after this one, there are how many people left? Seriously, like 12, right? So
literally like 15 people in the Millennium Falcon.
So they have wiped out everybody in the Resistance because no one is helping them. There's no one left. Anyways, you know, you can do the geared towards kids without it being quite so Saturday morning cartoony. That's not Star Wars, you know.
I
think
don't think
a good
this
example.
movie went there though.
What's
I
that?
personally don't feel this movie went like how, you know, I watched some of the documentaries on the prequels, and they like, oh, they needed to have a character that was marketable to kids or goofy, you know, the whole Jar Jar and all that. I don't feel like this at all was like that at all. There were some things that were misplaced humor, but I don't think it was anything meant to be.
I think
like,
they were
really for
trying to do
kids.
exactly what they do in all of the Avengers movies and everything else. The jokes felt exactly the same, and they just didn't fit with the scene, or every one of those that hit. I don't know, when they happen, I'm like, oh, okay, that didn't fit, but good, Disney has this.
Like the one where they're in the AT, and then I think Kylo tells the Hux to do something, whatever. He doesn't do it. Kylo chokes him, throws him across the room, and the guy in the desk like, "Oh, doing it now, sir." You know,
but that worked. I thought that was funny.
yeah, I thought that was a good thing.
Right.
But some of the things at the very beginning, I was like, really?
Yeah.
That's how they're kind of set the tone. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So
I think a good example for the whole kind of change of tone for me was when Poe and Finn and Rose came up with a plan to break into the Dreadnought and take care of the tracker. They wanted to figure out how to get a code breaker. And they called the lady from the cantina. My mind went blank. Can't think of her name.
Maz Kanata.
Maz Kanata, thank you. And when they're talking to her on the vid screen, she's like, oh, I'm in a union dispute. You don't want anything of that. So she's holding a conversation with them as she's in a blaster fight.
right.
Flipping around, doing cartwheels, shooting while she's talking to them and making a joke here or there. It's like,
right,
they're trying to kill you.
Right.
Stop. That's a change of tone that wouldn't have really been in the other ones. But as I say that, I guess I remember Han Solo walking into about 10 stormtroopers, shooting and then chasing them as they were running away. And then they turn around, shoot, and he runs, which was a funny moment that we all remember. So
hey, it looks like Matt is here. You guys keep talking. I'm going to get Matt added to this, and we're going to hear what he has to say. So you guys give me just a second here while I get that going.
Oh my god, this thing's going to go on for like another 3 hours.
Yeah, here we go.
Matt, you mentioned one of the things earlier about Finn, or maybe it was Chad talking about him being a coward or something and totally changing around. I don't think he was. Yeah, it was. I don't think he was like being a coward necessarily. He was really focused on Rey. He knew he couldn't do anything there, so he was like, go to.
I agree.
Do whatever he could to go get Rey. Not that he was running away because he was a wuss or anything.
Okay.
Rey was the only person he's ever had a connection with, really, except briefly with Poe. So he's coming off being a brainwashed stormtrooper. All he was thinking about was helping Rey.
Right.
I do think Finn was they didn't know what to do with him in this movie. So they sent him and Rose on a mission that basically failed, did nothing, got him in a couple fights, and then came back. And it really didn't have anything to do with the overarching story. So.
All right. So we have. Oh my God, Matt! What's up with your display? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you hooked up to your Commodore
having
64
Midland-
right now?
I'm having Midland Cinema display problems. My 3D
Oh yeah, that was
is
kind of a
not
funny
3D.
thing last night. Our 3D experience didn't start off so well. They didn't have the camera or the projector set up right, so you're seeing the double that you would normally be turned into an image on the 3D.
Right.
So everybody's like, "Are our glasses broke, or what's going on?"
Well, they forget how to do things because they only show one 3D showing a day. Midland Cinemas,
You
get
know,
your act together.
you know what though? Really, that was on that theater was only half full. There weren't a lot of people in there. I was surprised.
They were all sold up till the 10:15 or whatever we went to.
Were they?
So, yeah, I think that's what they're saying.
So, looks like Matt disappeared. Oh, there he is.
Guy in chat, John McClurg said he said just have Gareth Edwards take over the rest of the Rogue One crew take over. Now, obviously, that's not part of the Skywalker trilogy or anything necessarily. I thought Rogue One was cool for the style of it, but to me, I didn't think it was a necessary movie at all.
I liked it though. It told a good story.
I just didn't care about it necessarily. Like, had it not been made, I wouldn't have. Oh God, what happened? How did all this happen? You know, to come to
It had
Death Star.
To me, it had the grit.
It
that
did.
Matt
It did.
was talking
Absolutely.
about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it had that feel that was closer to the original trilogy than the last couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I really liked the droid. The comedy with that droid in there too was pretty cool. That was done really well. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and more in line with the Star Wars theme, anyways. You know. So Matt, how's it going there, buddy?
I just woke up, man.
Did you seriously just wake up?
Yeah, dude. Like, I set my alarm for 9 o'clock because that's usually when we get on, and I just slept right through it.
And Jessica,
like,
is she sleeping too?
I even texted your wife. I said, "Where is your husband?"
She's probably like, he's on the couch.
So, anyways, Matt, I know you've missed quite a bit of this as you're just signing in, but go ahead and give us your opinion on the movie here.
So we talked briefly about it last night, and like the more and more I thought about it, like I told Chad when we walked out, like, I don't know how to feel about this movie. You know,
betrayed.
I did, but this is the thing. Like, I thought about it like on the drive home, and it was like a 3-hour drive home. But dude, it was like ridiculous. I don't like the movie at all. Like, I think it was well, okay. There are some good points to it, like the acting I thought was really well done.
I agree.
I think all of the actors that they had in the movie, you know, they especially Carrie Fisher, she like stepped up from the first one. Like, I thought she was amazing in this one. And what's his name? The guy that plays Kylo Ren. Matthew Driver, he was awesome. I liked him. Adam Driver. Everybody good's name is Matt.
Matt. I think Matt is an excellent name.
Matt. Yeah. So, I mean, Adam Driver, I thought he was awesome. I think the girl that played Rey, their interactions with each other were really well done.
It was.
But the storyline was horrendous. It was so bad. Like, I literally did. I felt betrayed. Like, it's 2 years. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, dude, like, the two main questions after the first one was, who are Rey's parents and who the hell is Snoke? Right?
I totally agree. That's exactly what I was
like.
saying.
You leave. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
No, you woke up on the wrong side of the discussion. We talked about that.
Yeah, I know. I figured you guys would probably hit that right off the bat.
That's fine.
But
We
it's
can
like,
hear Matt's
those are
opinion.
the two main points, that you leave after watching The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And you come into the second one, you've got all these high hopes, like, oh my God, you're going to find out whose Rey's parents are. You're going to find out where Snoke comes from and why he's such a badass. And a complete and total letdown.
Mhm.
It didn't. I feel like it didn't feel like Star Wars to me. It was set in the universe, but it could have been any other movie.
I agree. I totally agree. And one thing too, that when people ask me what I think of it, the only thing I say to them is, "What do you want? What do you want to know from this movie?" And they're like, "Well, I want to know about Rey. I want to know where she comes from, and I want to know about Snoke. What? How the hell? You know what I mean?" I said, "Okay,
Yeah.
you're not going to enjoy this movie then. If that's what you're hoping to find out." There's no, and they're like, "Oh, there's cliffhangers. We're not going to find out until episode 9." And I'm like,
But that's
"Mm-mm."
what they believe. That's what they lead you to believe after the
Mhm.
first one is like, okay, you've got these powerful characters set in motion. They're interacting like they do in a normal Star Wars, and I thought the first one was great.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it did set up a lot of like mystery, and it made you like really look forward to
Intrigued.
next.
Like,
This
do
one,
you
I was like,
remember the next couple of days after The Force
Yes,
Awakens
the
came out?
conversations.
Like the
Yes.
internet blew the F up. It was crazy, dude. There was all sorts of
Mhm.
theories. We had theories. We were talking about it like months after the movie.
Yep.
This
Mhm.
one, it's like you're gonna do spoilers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
Oh, they will
we've
spoil
already
it.
said spoilers. You're good.
Okay. Ray's gutter trash? What the what?
I know.
Who? You're nothing. I saw it when we touched. You're nobody. You have no part in this place. Then what the f is she doing in the movie? Like seriously, why would you do that?
Well, it's not even that. I don't care that she's nothing. Anakin Skywalker was nothing and came
Right.
from
They
trash.
did that on purpose.
I don't care about that. I care that they purposely set this thing in motion to make there be
Right.
something there and fucking just put a cliff and there's nothing.
Right.
You just
And
get
that's
to
what
the
I'm
end
saying.
and
I'm
you're like,
like,
"Oh, okay, absolutely
if I were the
nothing."
director of the first movie,
Be
I would be
furious.
pissed. I would be so mad.
Well, J.J. Abrams, I mean, he had
Yeah.
still creative control over this, I believe.
I don't think so.
Not complete
would-
control,
I would
but I
hope
thought he
not.
had to produce him.
He helped write the first one or the episode 7, didn't he? And he did
Oh,
not.
yeah.
He did not write this at all or direct. He was a producer, but
I cannot believe that a group of people sat in a room, watched this, and said, "Yep, that's it.
send it out.
We need to put this out in theaters now."
Yep.
Like if I were on that board, I would have called the director and said, "You're done. We need to redo this shit," and delayed it a year.
See, and that's
Yeah,
that's
people would have
my-
been pissed, but it
Mhm.
would have been a way better movie than this horse shit that came out.
But I think a lot of this stems from there's a lot of mixed feedback right
Don't
now.
try and defend it.
No.
No, it's bad. Use your
I saw it the
feelings.
second time tonight. This is
Close
Chad
your
likes
eyes.
it.
it
Chad
was
saw
better.
Chad saw it again and he likes
Close
it.
your
now.
I
eyes,
saw it with my
Chad.
family.
Reach out.
That was funny.
Close your eyes and
So
reach
don't even
out.
go there. That was funny. I think one of the issues is you're a huge Star Wars fan. You could tell.
I'm not.
I mean, you felt. Okay, no, sorry. Oh my God, why do we even have him on the
I'm
thing?
not saying-
He hates Star Wars. He shouldn't even be on the thing.
I'm not saying I hate Star Wars. I'm not saying that I'm like a huge super fan and I don't know everything about
See,
the
that-
universe
and-
or anything like that.
And I
I'm
agree.
not saying that.
I
I'm saying
enjoy
you
the
like
movie.
the original movies a lot.
I do.
Okay, can we go forward with that point?
Well,
Am
I think
okay to
Chad-
continue
Chad-
I'm not a
with that?
super fan.
I think
Baby
part I
steps,
think
right?
part I think part of Matt's point with that though, because I'm the same way. I don't know about where the hell they get these crystals for the lightsabers and the names of the whatevers and every planet
Right.
and all this
I'm not
other
saying
stuff.
you need to.
You know what I mean? So I think that's
I do.
where Matt was saying as far as
All right.
his
All I want to be able to do is move forward with the notion that Matt really enjoyed the first three
Okay,
movies.
carry on. Yes.
And he looks back on them with
Okay,
joy.
yes, go. Continue.
So I think your betrayal is kind of like how we all felt when we walked out, because we all felt the same way about the movie. Was the Skywalker lineage has been crapped on with this movie in a sense, and it really kind of it mortalized them instead of immortalized them.
Mhm.
And you're looking at this movie where we lost a villain, and there's no like good villains here. The characters that we loved, there was a happy ending on Return of the Jedi. I was telling the guys this earlier. But after that, obviously things fell apart after the first 24 hours or so. Because now they're down to 400 people. So it's like everything that we were introduced to, we loved. So the movie was a betrayal to us. Some people sitting in a conference room looking at it as a film, not in the whole context of the Star Wars fandom that we've all been a part of, could look at this and say it's a good movie.
That's what makes it. That's what makes it bad, though. That's what makes it a bad Star Wars movie.
I think everything you just said was wrong.
At the end of the, I'm doing the Trump hands here. At the end of the
grab her by the.
Grab this movie by the
grab her by the porg.
By the end of the episodes 1, 2, and 3, there was clear plot direction. There was characters, even though there were ones that you hated, there were still characters that you cared about. This movie didn't have that. This is, and I know that I'm in the minority here, but this movie was worse in my mind than those 3 movies. Not just as a Star Wars movie, but just a movie in general was not as good. It was not as good as episodes 1, 2, and 3. The Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, Palpatine, everything from those movies, even though there was stuff that was done wrong, and I absolutely agree with that. I don't care about anyone from this like I did from those. The plot, at least at the other one, was linear and made sense from one movie to the next. And this one just doesn't do that. And everything that they get you to be excited about, which is the point of a plot hook, you can't have a good movie when you take the plot hooks and just get rid of them out of the blue for no reason. And like I said, I don't care that Rey came from nothing. You can write that to where you feel good about it when you hear that she comes from nothing, and not just that it's a goddamn plot twist just to F with your mind. There's a difference between doing a twist that's done well and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense, that's awesome, and something where they lead you to believe that this is going to be a thing and they just pull the rug out from underneath you. That's not good writing. It's not good movie. That's why this movie wasn't good. It has nothing to do with my Star Wars fandom. I honestly think that it just wasn't good in general. Now, going back on, I was scared to say anything to you guys last night when we got out of there because I didn't know what you guys thought, and I didn't want to be standing at 1 o'clock in the morning in a parking lot arguing about Star Wars or whatever. But
because I think we were all so stunned, like nobody wanted to say anything about it. We were like, "What just happened?" Like seriously. But I will say, on another good thing about the movie is some of the special effects were amazing.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Yes,
I love for me, the big thing that stands out, it was the way Poe was flying around the X-wing, like just like 180, just like so.
That was pretty sweet too.
So
My favorite part was when that chick took the cruiser and just light speeded it right through the other battle destroyer. I thought that was awesome. The way they cut out the sound, you could literally hear like a pin drop in the movie theater. Because there was no sound. It was just like, it's in space. And then all of a sudden it was just like this massive explosion and, pieces were flying everywhere. Oh, yeah.
They're like sliced in half. I mean, it was like just a kind of motion, not an explosion, but it's like just like breaking apart.
That was awesome, but it was a major plot hole for me. That should be a regular way of handling battle. Light speed attacks.
Like if you're like, why didn't they light speed through the Death Star? Like if we're gonna lose all of these people, you don't even have to be in the ship. You know what I mean? Just remote control a ship to light speed it through a Death Star.
You've
the
got
escape
400
pod and
people.
boom.
You've got 400 dead destroyers.
But that
But-
was awesome. That, like, even when that
Yeah.
happened, as disappointed as I was in the movie overall when that happened, I still sat back and was like, "Whoa, that was super cool. That was absolutely awesome."
It was
Yeah.
pretty impactful. It was
Yes.
the whole thing of how the setup and why she had to do it was dumb, but just the way that was put together, the effects. I mean, it was like almost like a black and white, really focused on
hmm
what was
Mhm.
happening. It was like, wow, that's a big deal.
Yep.
The movie had its faults for sure, but I love the Luke Ray dynamic, and all Luke's scenes I thought were really good.
Right. I think the acting was really good.
Overall, this is the best acted Star Wars movie
I agree.
think I've seen.
I agree, but you know, I love the original 3, but Mark Hamill in that was almost as annoying to listen to as Jar Jar. You know what I mean? Oh, come
Little
on.
weenie.
You know, just all the
Why
time.
can't I go dance, Uncle Ben?
Yeah. So I definitely agree, but that just goes to show that this kid does have the best acting in all of the movies, and it still managed to not be nearly as good as the first 3 that were pretty subpar with that in comparison.
Right.
So does anyone else have anything they want to add? You got anything? Is there anything in
Well,
chat, Jay?
This movie sucked. Go
we've been
watch,
addressing it.
go watch Justice League.
See, I think that's silly.
My
You
big-
definitely want to see it in a theater.
I
You
consider
have to.
myself a kind of a nerd, as we all do, but I'm not a super fan. I think the last time I watched the original movies was probably back around high school, maybe. Last time I watched the prequels was close to shortly after they came out. I bought The Force Awakens after I saw it in the theater. I have not watched the DVD of it. I kind of take away from my whole thing is just like Star Wars as a whole universe. The concept of it is cool. I enjoy it. I don't get all nitpicky on some of this stuff and think, oh my God, my childhood is ruined. I kind of take away the parts I like and I just enjoy those. But I can see where some of you guys get a little upset about it.
It honestly, though, it's not like that for me, though. I don't look at this like I wish that it was more Star Warsy as far as that goes, but I just don't think in general that it's written well. The whole, like I said, it's all about the plot hooks and the characters. They don't need to be Skywalkers. I don't care if there's no Jedis left. You can have good movies in that universe with just people shooting guns at each other. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. It's just the lack of story and plot hooks.
Well, I mean, look at Rogue One. There's not. I mean, I'm trying to remember, but I don't think there's any Jedi anything in the movie aside from the blind guy.
Yeah,
who
that blind. Yeah,
yeah.
And
There's no lightsabers or anything like that except for at the end. But
mm-hmm.
I mean, that was still a good movie,
Mm-hmm.
and by far blows this one out of the water.
So let me, and you guys don't have to answer this if you don't want, but I'm just curious, where would you rate this? Because for me, it's the bottom of the list, I think, or maybe tied with episode 1. It's right down there, but where would you guys put this as far as ranking with the Star Wars movies that you've seen? Anyone? And
I
in
think
chat,
I'd put it at the bottom.
would you?
to me,
too?
it's towards the top.
Really? What about you, Chad?
Yeah.
It
Not
would
at
be
the top, towards the top. For me.
it would be middle. It would be behind the originals. It would be ahead of the prequels.
So
think
literally
so?
right in the middle.
Yes.
Wow.
So
Story wise,
Yeah.
wow.
yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree
I
with
think
that.
I've seen it
yeah,
twice, so I
like-
know more than you. I will say,
I'm more humble than you are, Dan.
I am more humble than you could even possibly understand.
expectations hurt me on the first night. They were obviously too high. Coming in the second night, I enjoyed it much more. I really did.
So
I feel like you shouldn't have to lower your expectations to
to
make
like a movie.
better,
No.
right?
What I'm saying though, it's not as
I mean,
good as the originals.
It,
But
it was the
from
worst
what
until I
was
thought it
told-
was the worst. Then it was a
no,
little
but
bit
what I
better.
was
Here's a
told was it was going to be the next Empire,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
So here we go. We're the second movie in the trilogy. It's going to be amazing. What?
Mhm.
But it was good here and here. I had my issues. Damn it. But the next day it was like, oh, it's really good here and here. Why is Leia flying towards that ship? All right,
How
whatever.
could she withstand the pressure in space?
All right.
But
So it was
I
not
don't
the
know,
best
man.
Star Wars movie. It was middle of the road for me.
So what about? Let me ask you this: what about Episode 1 and 2 and 3? 2 and 3 even more so. But what about those are worse than this?
The only thing I found supremely redeeming about the prequels was Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. Anakin drove me nuts through the whole movie, no matter who was playing him.
What about
And
the
they threw in the
stories?
midichlorians was ridiculous. Divine birth. What? This is Star Wars.
Yeah, they could do whatever they want.
And it was all about a trade war. It was a trade federation.
Yeah, there was too much politics, too much
Yeah.
talking.
I mean, if I want to do that, go watch Fox News.
Well, they.
Watch Fox News and MSNBC if you want to see trade wars.
But
I want
see,
to
the
see
reason-
sci-fi.
But
the
at
reason I
least
think
it,
they did that is because
to
they
describe-
wanted to make it more impactful when the Emperor took over.
right.
You know
Why?
what I mean? Like there's
Mhm.
no there's no leadership. You know, everybody's just kind of at their own whim, and then all of a sudden this guy steps up and says, "Okay, we're basically forming a union, and there's nothing you can do about it. You either
Mhm.
join or die."
Right.
You know, so that's I think that's probably why there was a lot of politics and everything like that. But
I could have been handled in a 45-minute docudrama. Eh.
I still think that the story in any one of those first three episode 1, 2, or 3 movies outweighs everything that was done in
Yeah.
episode 8.
I agree. Yeah.
Like The Last Jedi,
They're wrong.
I really could care less that Rey is the last Jedi now. Like I have
She's
no
not-
sympathy for Leia. I mean, she
not a
did a
Jedi.
very good job acting, but I don't think they portrayed like their woes very well. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, they started with 400 people and maybe 50 of them made it down to the planet. You know, and I get it. They want to rebuild the rebellion and that
They're
kind
the
of thing.
spark, man.
And they're the spark that ignites the flame.
That was
and-
corny.
Well, you know what else was corny? Getting back, Luke was badass when he went out there, but he comes in, he's like, "I'm gonna go face him," and then they're like, Poe was like, "I think the reason that he did this was so we had a chance to escape." You know what I mean? And I was watching that, I'm like, well, he would have said, "Hey, get out of here! I'll stall him," instead of just walking out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that was Luke's plan, and for them to do that, and like I said, that it was not a good story overall.
I think they Disney-fied the movie too much.
Explain how.
They comic
Like-
booked it.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of humor that was inserted that I don't think needed to be well done, but I mean, it just didn't flow well with like the other movies.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, yeah, there's some funny parts in the other movies, but I think they tried to, like you said, the Avengers. You don't like the Avengers because, you know, that it's just not what it should be. You know, they try to make it too funny and they try to add all these jokes in there, and like every other scene, there's a joke in this movie. And you're like, seriously, I came to watch Star Wars, not freaking Dane Cook give his rendition of space battles. It's just, I don't know. The movie just rubbed me raw in like every sense of the way. I seriously think that this movie could end the franchise if they
No
didn't
way.
have another one.
I disagree with that. I don't think
No way.
I don't think anything can end the franchise. It's like this
I
is
think
this
it'll
is the
turn a
wow
lot of
killer.
people
This
off.
is the wow killer.
I just- yeah. I don't
Turn
think
that.
like Man, like I thought this would be like the make it break it movie. Like this is the second one of your trilogy. You know, the first one was really good. It left you with these good cliffhangers to like sort out. You know, you have a story already built, and they just completely drop the ball.
The movie almost writes itself in my mind,
Right.
and there's so many different ways it can go, but all of the ways that it could have went basically writes itself. And
which is the problem though when you change writers.
Oh, sure.
Because the new writers has his own ideas, wants to put his spin on it. That's going to always hurt.
Sure, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
So kill these writers and send them.
Oh, this
out
writer
of Hollywood.
has a new trilogy given to him. He's the one writing the new trilogy.
What new trilogy?
That they've already planning to do.
Great. So some more Star Wars movies I can be disappointed about. See, now those movies, my expectations will be extremely low.
But they're supposed to be not
so when I go in
related, so
that's fine. I like Matt said, I could care less if anything's Skywalker related, but this series of movies is.
Which is why you were disappointed.
No, I was disappointed because the story sucked. Not just because it was
my biggest.
I mean, it was semi Skywalker related. You know, there was a lot of Luke in it, and Ben is, you know, part Skywalker, and it's just, I don't know, man. This movie is just, it's bad. I can't see anybody who likes any of the original 6 movies or 7 movies liking this.
Hey,
and saying that it's a good. It like blows my mind that you do.
I think I caught that, Chad.
Dude,
it's not about.
What you need to realize is that I agree that like half of the movie there's plot that just isn't good, like with Finn and Leia. But on the other hand, I think you're ignoring that there's some really good stuff with Luke and Rey. So
okay, there's good interaction between Luke and Rey, but not anything that advances the plot.
They could have been doing that in a cantina.
Right. Yeah, really. I mean, that's the point with that. Luke and Yoda in Empire advanced the plot. Luke and Rey didn't really advance the plot at all. At all. The part that they did advance with that was her having this dark side surge, and with her seeing herself and needing to know who her parents are, and neither of those are a thing. They're both totally shit-canned. So Luke and her didn't advance the plot. So that's
no, I completely disagree.
And I don't care. I don't care that the movie isn't about. I think it's very important that we know that this isn't about Skywalkers and lightsabers and Jedi. I don't care that the Jedi's gone. I don't care about people using lightsabers or anything else. My biggest disappointments were Rey, who I wasn't expecting to be a Jedi necessarily, but you can write her coming from nowhere. You can write it better. And Snoke, who should be a huge pivotal thing. Everything that happened appears to be because of him. And he's gone, and for no reason. Everything that has to do with the plot of the movie is gone. I liked how Mark Hamill was acting. His acting in the movie. I liked his interactions with Rey, and everything else. But I don't like. I don't feel that any of that. There was no plot really to the movie. That there was no advancement of the plot at all in my mind. And that's my biggest issue with it.
I have a question that's it goes along this side, obviously, but why is the First Order even around? I mean, why do they have such huge ships? Who are they battling against?
That's my point.
The 40 rebels?
I mean, I know.
Rebels.
Right. There's an entire galaxy against 40 people. You know what I mean? Where is why... that's the problem, Jason. There is no plot.
Well,
There's a
that's
lack
the
of plot.
thing
That's
about-
why
an
you don't know
idea.
this, and that's everyone wants to know how Snoke did this, why they're there, who they're fighting, what's going on, and it's just a bunch of angry old white men shooting people that aren't doing what they want them to do for no reason whatsoever.
Well, like the first one, you said you liked The Force Awakens, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
See, but that's so to me that goes back to that. Like, why is the First Order even around? Like,
I
aren't
was
they just
waiting for
building
them.
a
One of the
huge
things
army?
one of the things I didn't like about The Force Awakens was how did the First Order happen? They never explained it. This movie was the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And that's what I said. They may be able, they can still redeem this with episode 9. They can go back and say, okay, this is why and this is whatever, and then in hindsight you might be able to go back and watch this and do whatever. But as of right now, there is no plot
Except
for
the
that.
people that we cared about are dead.
Right.
See, but this is the thing, though. This is the thing. If they do that in 9, I feel like when all 3 are released, I can watch 7, skip 8, and then go straight to 9.
Yeah. I could see that. That's a good point too.
You know, you can't skip. You know, you can watch 4, you can't skip 5 and then go to 6 and know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I can do that with this one.
Yeah, it's
I
just
can write
okay.
it off, not watch it, and then
Right.
go watch 9. If they, if they redeem themselves in 9 and come up, with an actual story.
This that's a good point for advancing the plot. So okay, so I watched 7, but I didn't see 8, and I'm going to watch 9 with you. So what happened? What happened in 8 now? Oh, everybody died.
Yeah, a bunch of people died. Ray's nobody, and Snoke's dead.
Yeah, it falls into people dying.
Like, that's it.
Chad has
Had
a
this
look
been
of
trimmed down
frustration and
to-
annoyance on his face.
He does. He's trying to come out as the good guy. It's not going to work.
Had
No,
this been trimmed down
it's-
Come to the dark
Kylo,
side, Chad.
To say
Rey-
that there was no
I was
story,
talking.
there was no plot advanced with Luke and Rey is
Luke's dead.
in my opinion was false, because he basically they went through the history of him and the Jedi temples, with the text and the burning of the tree for the Jedi training, talking to Yoda, figuring out really the thing that I hated about it was Yoda said, "Hey, go train her," and then, "Oh, but I'm gonna sacrifice myself to buy them time to get away while I fight Kylo." But that part of the movie was needed, and I thought was pretty necessary as far as advancing Rey. But everything else, the Finn, the casino, all that stuff was unnecessary. It's almost like you could have had a half an hour tweener episode that focused on Rey finding Luke.
Let me ask you
You
this.
could have went through.
So what did she learn from Luke?
The first
know.
2 rules out of 3.
2 of the 3 rules. No,
2 of
seriously.
the 3 rules.
I mean,
No, he talked about the hypocrisy of the Jedi as a whole.
but you
And
got
that moving forward, you don't need these texts. You don't need to basically follow these old rules. That's not what the Force is about. It was arrogant for the Jedi to feel that the Force was theirs to control.
right, but the
I
whole
totally agree with you, Chad.
right, but
Well,
that doesn't need to be trained to anybody. That can be written on a Post-it note and
No,
handed
but you
over.
asked
What
how-
what good did Luke do for her to explain that to her other than you
I
know
can tell you that if you let me talk.
what? Go ahead.
So Luke kind of did the same thing. He wasn't done training with Yoda when he took off and felt the need to do his own thing, and he ended up working through and kind of self-training. And that's kind of what happened with Rey too. There was a parallel there, in my opinion, that she found out she was disappointed. She didn't like Luke was. He wanted everything to happen so fast, and Yoda saying you got to have patience and all that. Well, I think Rey went through the same thing, that she wanted to know these things Luke wasn't teaching her, or felt differently about her, didn't know how to teach it. So she started like searching her feelings, figuring out things on her own, and that's how she developed. It was maybe kind of indirectly because of Luke, but that whole thing, his resistance and saying everything the Jedi Order should die, and she wanted to be more in tune with it. That's where that developed.
But it took from. Keep in mind, the whole movie takes place in 16 hours. So she got the bulk of her Jedi training in maybe 2 hours, because most of the time she was chasing Luke around the island and getting nothing. So you literally could have made an entire movie that was just the training of them and actually been able to sit through the whole thing and catch even the silent moments that there was in training between the two of those. You know, and what he, with every other, anyone who is force sensitive or has these abilities in this universe, they have to, even if they're have the ability to manipulate it in some point, they have to train and learn discipline and how to control it. Even the Sith and the Jedi, all the way around, just to, you know, Luke in, at least they showed scenes of him with Ben in the Ben Kenobi in the Millennium Falcon, you know, with the blindfold on and blocking the laser shots, and, you know, spending, you know, a few minutes training. And even with Yoda, he was presumably with Yoda for longer than a half a day. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily say, but when you watch it, you get the feeling that he maybe was there for weeks. You know what I mean? Maybe not.
They do a
years,
whole training
montage
session on it.
Yeah.
They do a whole Rocky montage on his training.
But you know what I mean?
I think she is so powerful. I mean, yeah, she has this innate strength, and of course she would have to be trained by someone who has the experience to perfect all these things. But if
1 second.
Okay. But if she is really that powerful, I mean, maybe she had like her epiphany was all these things that she was waiting for Luke to tell her she had this. Mm-hmm. She learned how to do this on her own through her feelings, and not because oh, you gotta read this like a recipe book and this will magically happen. That's my
opinion. They're setting her up to be like the most powerful Force user that anybody's really seen.
Sure.
At least moving forward.
I get that. They're doing Anakin with her, basically.
Yeah.
Came from nowhere, the most powerful that they've ever seen, has this terror between good and bad that, you know what I mean? Kind of the wants to do good, but is driven by, you know, other emotions or whatever else it is that kind of can pull her towards, like the emotions of wanting to know where she comes from, so she goes to that mirror thing. And that was a cool scene too. I like that, by the way. I thought it was neat how they'd show her being like the 15th person in line to go snap, and she just kind of had to do it when it went by. Like, I thought that was cool. But anyways, you know, with what they're doing with her as far as making her one of these characters, I totally get that, but I don't think that and back to what I'm saying about advancing the plot, she could have come to all of these and basically I don't feel like Luke taught her anything really. I liked the interaction between him and her, and all of that, but I don't feel like she left there being any wiser.
I completely disagree.
I do too.
She walked in there thinking that Jedis were basically deities, and he could literally turn the war around by himself
and turn her life around.
Yeah,
she knew that she had these powers or whatever it was that was happening to her. She's like, Luke is, like Chad said, basically a god to everyone. She's like, I'm gonna track down this guy. We know where he is, and I'm gonna learn everything. I'm gonna get questions answered.
And Luke even made the comment, what, do you think I'm going to walk up against the First Order and take them all down?
Right.
But and the funny thing is, I don't want to go to the grave defending this movie because it has major flaws. Not flaws. but maybe has those too. I don't know. Well,
with Leia,
Leia thawed after she was in space.
There were major thaws.
She was a major thaw. But, I just, for me, with especially the Luke finale and I feel the growth of Rey and where they're going to take the Jedi Order, I would never rank it last because of that part of the movie. I will not try to defend any other parts of the movie as far as plot goes. That was just dressing for for what I thought was the heart of the movie, which was Rey and Luke.
And I thought had this movie been trimmed down to the Rey, Kylo, Luke stuff, a whole movie about that would have been freaking fantastic. And
it would have moved to the top of my list.
Well, maybe they would have spent time writing the explaining some things, writing some stuff in, even with, like I said, I don't care that she comes from nothing. I care that the story, they built you up on this cliffhanger of who is this girl, and without any kind of a good story writing, like I said, they just ripped the rug out from underneath you. And John said in chat, he said the whole point, while poorly executed, was to point out that the Jedi as a whole was bullshit, and now we'll see how the Force lives on through people who don't follow Jedi or Sith ideology, the Grey. And then Jay said, I love the idea of the Grey Jedi. And I agree.
Agreed.
I do like the idea of the Grey Jedi. My whole point was this, and why I say this was not a good movie, was because what he said was while poorly executed. That's the whole thing. It was poorly executed.
Right.
I think the whole point was that Snoke was this, and that, and you know what I mean? But poorly executed.
I feel like
even the way he was
arguing,
executed was poorly.
Right. I feel like even though we're arguing, we're really not that far apart. I just find a few more redeeming things, and you don't.
Honestly,
and we're kind of like,
what I think it comes down to is I feel like I find more redeeming things from the first three, because the main.
I agree.
I agree that we probably feel similar about this, but I put it at the bottom of the list, which is more offensive to you guys because you guys didn't like 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I do think we feel fairly similar about this movie, and I, although 1 was my least favorite Star Wars movie of all of them, I liked 2. I enjoyed that movie, and like you said, because of Obi-Wan's a badass character. Ewan McGregor did it great. And,
he was really good.
And is someone
who's beatboxing?
Beating on the microphone? Who's doing that? You tapping your table or something, Jay? Oh. But you know what I mean? So I think that's honestly this discussion is more about me appreciating 1, 2, and 3 more than you guys do.
It could be.
Because I put this underneath those. And I agree that those weren't the best, but like I said, when I walked out of those movies, I did not. Did you, Chad, when you walked out of 1, 2, or 3 from the theater, were you like, man, I'm upset with this movie?
2.
They gave you nothing to think about.
Really?
I didn't like 2.
Which one was 2? Was that the one with the clones?
When they went off in the planet and he was protecting her and he was dancing around?
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
I did not like that one at all. I thought 1 was okay. 3 was a little bit better because of the final kind of showdown with Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rank of the prequels, 3 was my favorite, 1 was second, and then the second one was last.
Because the third one was Attack of the Clones, right?
No, the third one was
No,
Revenge
that
of
was
the Sith.
second.
The third one was the one, Revenge of the Sith. Attack of the Clones was the second one. But I liked all of those okay. You know what I mean? They weren't. I didn't like any of them better than the original 3, but I still don't mind watching them with the kids if
But
they
did you
want to
come
watch
out
them
of
with
them
something.
thinking, man, there's a lot of deep stuff to think about here?
Yeah, I was. The plot had me the whole time. I was always wondering how Anakin was going to turn. I was always what was going to be the final catalyst that really kicked him over. I was always wondering how Palpatine was going to take over. I was always wondering how, and because I'm not a Star Wars guy, I didn't know any of the story behind all that when I went to watch those. So I didn't know how all the stormtroopers, what was it, execute code whatever that turned them.
Order 66.
Yeah,
or something.
order whatever that was. That I didn't know about that. So all of that had me hooked through those.
But you knew ultimately where those arcs ended up. You knew how Vader, ended up.
right.
Well, you
but-
have to. It's a prequel. It's like saying,
Right,
I know
that's
how
what
the
I'm saying,
Hobbit.
there's no-
I know how the Hobbit ends, so I refuse to.
But there was no mystery to that. You're like, okay, how do they connect these dots here? Where with Rey,
Well-
I think you had too high expectations of they were building her up, but maybe that's kind of symbolic. Everybody thinks she's supposed to be something special,
Yeah.
and then the end turns out that she's just a normal person. Anybody can be great. And
So
do
you
things.
guys were totally cool when he said you're nothing, you're trash. You guys were like, yes, that is satisfying. That is a satisfying plot turn. You guys felt that way then, right?
I was okay with that.
I want to see the satisfaction from you guys because
I
I
was
looked
like,
around the
finally we
theater.
can
I'm
drop
like,
this.
really?
Yeah.
But to me, again, I took it as he might have been messing with her. He might have been trying to get into her head and say, "You're
See,
nobody
that's what I
without
thought.
me."
That's what I thought at first, but then I thought, man, the writing in this movie is so bad. I don't even think the director could go that far.
I thought when he was saying that, I thought he said your parents were junkies.
Junkies?
And they sold her. I was like, and then when I read the actual words later, it was like, oh, junker. Yeah, 'cause they collected junk and all that stuff. They were salvage. I was like, junkies. Wow, that's pretty deep for a Star Wars movie.
But I mean, even if he says, your parents are junkers or whatever he says,
Junk
what is the
traders
whole
or-
junk traders? What is the whole scene in the first one where that ship comes down and drops her off? Like, why is that even in there then?
Drops her off.
In episode
just shows
7,
the ship
there's like a
flying away,
flashback,
her
and
holding
when
the
she
hand up.
grabs, her holding the
because
hand up,
they
after
were
the ship flies away.
they were purposely building you up
baiting
to
you.
want. Yes, that's
Yeah.
what it was. It was cheap writing and cheap baiting for that. It's
But it
okay.
worked.
Yeah, it
Well, it
worked for-
obviously worked for you.
and then when they come to deliver, I feel like that whole bait and switch was worth nothing.
Yeah.
It was basically just a big letdown. And Jay, you're right. They could be using it as a, maybe he was just trying to get her to come to him, join him in the dark side by saying you're nothing. I can make you better.
See, what I thought would have been and maybe we'll see. Like I said, we'll see how they pull this off in 9. And it is totally possible to redeem this movie with episode 9.
Except for Snoke.
It'll take yes.
Right.
It'll take
I
never
completely
know.
agree.
it'll
You
take
never
some
know.
good writing. What do you agree with, Chad?
The biggest problem here is the lack of that sinister villain pulling the strings.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not the two yahoos that are currently in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, for the Star Wars franchise, I don't feel like there has to be this elite bad guy. But when you put him in a movie, there's got to be something. There's got to be some substance to him to make him that bad.
Well, and how
Like in the first one, he was shrouded in secrecy. And
Right,
everybody was like,
like-
oh my God, you only get a glimpse of this guy through a hologram. And, he's
he
like
really that
controlling
big?
everything. Is he really that big? Where does
Right.
he come from? Who is he?
another
You're
that
thinking
kind of
this
thing.
guy.
another thing
it's-
of building up the plot and then totally taking it away. Like
Yeah.
taking a very good plot hook for this. He easily could have run through all of this and possibly carried on farther than Kylo. You know what I mean? That was a
Yeah.
good plot hook that had me and all of us, because we were talking about it in the bar before we went in, talking
Yeah.
about who he is.
Who he
Well,
is.
it doesn't fucking matter who he is because he's dead.
Yeah, he's nothing, and you'll never know because we're not going to explain it because
Right.
we're poor writers.
Right,
He
exactly.
could be a Force ghost. No.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, geez.
Yoda blew
There's a
up
Force
the
ghost.
Force tree as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
That was just a random lightning strike
Yeah.
that just happened to work in his favor. But I don't know, man. Like, as a whole, I really dislike this movie. The more and more I thought about it, I was like, not only am I angry as a fan, not a super fan, but as a fan of Star Wars and the Star Wars genre and movies.
I'm angry as a fan of movies. I think
I would be furious if I was a director. If I directed the first one and this trash came out, I would be like, dude, what did you just do? What are you doing? I set you up so good. Like, I could seriously see them in a room, this guy throwing him up against the wall and be like, what did you do, Ray? What did you do?
What did you do, Ryan?
Like, what's your deal? Do you hate Star Wars? Is that why you threw this trash out there? You know, I mean,
and Abrams is coming back for the
so
next
bad.
one, isn't he? Isn't he doing the last one now?
And I'm excited about that. But
it's going to be like it was all a dream sequence.
Right.
It was all a dream sequence.
It has nothing to do
Oh,
with
everybody's still alive. Oh, I gotcha.
It was all done on a 3D chessboard.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, man. It's this movie. Take it as you will, but I mean, seriously, I give it 2 thumbs down.
I don't know if I would give it 2 thumbs down necessarily, but I would definitely.
You will.
I definitely did not like it as much as any of the other Star Wars movies. Even the Star Wars Christmas special was probably written better than this.
The Life Day special.
The one with Mickey Mouse, because that's coming.
No. Didn't B. Arthur sing a song in that, right?
Right.
Isn't that top of the list? A Golden Girl singing the song in a Star Wars special?
The Wookiee Life Day celebration.
Ah.
So Lucas says Qui-Gon Jinn is a better Jedi than Obi-Wan, much more wise and calm. Sigh, my dear Qui-Gon Jinn.
I did like him.
I did too. I will find you. And you will die.
Yeah. I will find you. You stole my Padawan.
No, I agree. Qui-Gon was awesome. And another, like, I loved him and Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
together.
the duo, like
they're
Jedi
dynamic.
duo.
Yeah,
God, that was so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because at that point, Obi-Wan was kind of the young swashbuckler. So it was a really fun dynamic with those two. It was better than the Obi-Wan Anakin dynamic later, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
That's because Hayden Christensen was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
But he hates sand, so that was partly their fault.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to sum up with before we shut off the stream for today?
I think if we talk another 5 more minutes, we would have surpassed the length of the movie.
And there would have been better story.
And about as many viewers.
Poor for you.
Less porgs. And crystal foxes.
Those were cool.
Those were cool, but I feel like that was just Disney throwing something in there to be like, here you go. Here's another toy you can buy.
Crystal Fox that kind of led them.
It's
like, follow me.
It's because you play the pet class, Chad. You as the hunter wanted to tame that pet so
right,
bad.
They need to have a Crystal Fox on any MMO.
Yeah, anyone. It doesn't matter. Anyone.
It'll be in SWTOR. You know it will.
All right. So does anyone have anything they want to?
Yeah, Lucas again said, I just wanted emotional blows like in the death of Anakin's mother or I'm your father and Luke Anakin fight. I didn't feel that in the last movies. Maybe it's my cold heart. I mean, to me, I felt kind of sad when Luke, disappeared. Like, to me, I was like, man, that's like waited so long for Luke. Get some really cool moments, and now it's over. I was pretty bummed about that, actually.
See,
I felt bad when Leia was dead, And then she started floating.
Yeah, they ruined it. That I think I said that earlier too.
That would have been a good homage
Yes,
to her.
yes.
You know, I
We
thought
said
that,
that
like,
too.
when
Yeah.
that happened, I was like, well, that's the way it was, that's the way it was going to go. That she did her part. She did well. She was leading the resistance. Some unfortunate series of events happened, and now she's gone. But she had that legacy from that moment,
Mhm.
And then
She floated back.
you're like,
Which completely overshadowed Akbar's death. Come on.
Chad's so upset about that. This is crap.
It's crap.
the scene is a crap. Like, dude,
I like
seriously.
I like
I don't
that.
know.
It's a crap.
I feel like bringing her back at that point, though, didn't really have that much bearing on the movie either.
Not really.
Like, they brought her back, but for what point? Yeah, I get it. She's force sensitive. Everybody knew that because she could sense Luke throughout, the entire trilogy.
Well, yeah, forever.
But-
She's
Wake up, Leia. You've got more people to watch die.
Yeah. How about that?
once again another thing.
Escape.
Another thing that was done that didn't advance the story or anything. She didn't even change
Right.
what anyone was doing. She's like, oh
Right.
no, she's like, if she would have come back and advanced the plot in a way of, oh my God, we need to do this instead. You know what I
Right.
mean? She just came back like, oh, well, yeah, she's not going to die. We're just going to make you think she's dead for a few seconds, and then we're going to make her not die.
Right.
Hey, John, thanks for... Is the video still going? Yes, it is. Jay.
Well, my screen is locked
I
up.
know.
It's just
We
spinning.
That
apologize.
was Jay
My
that said that.
Yeah, my screen, the video's not going. It's locked up and it's got the spinning circle. So
Oh, Jesus.
Jay's video is over.
now it's back.
Jay's got middling internet, though.
But John, hey, thanks for joining us, man. And thank you, everybody else. Unless someone else here has something that they want to say before we bail.
I think it's just you and I now, Matt. There's just two watching now.
Is it?
And like I saw it like tick down like 6-5 words.
Tick, 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 tick.
They know we're leaving.
That's why you were. That's why it was spinning.
There's no post-credit discussions.
I can't keep up.
Post-credit discussions.
Jesus.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us. And I'll probably leave this stream on the channel. So if anyone happens to stumble across this long-ass podcast-ish
Right.
talk about Star Wars, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below about what you thought about the movie. And if you thought any of this was even remotely interesting, give us a thumbs up.
accurate.
If you hated it, I would love to hear who you side with, Jason and Chad or Matt and Matt, and let
Give
us
us
know
thumbs
why.
up if you agree with Matt and Matt. Give
Oh,
us thumbs
yeah.
down if you agree with Chad and Jason.
And how that usually works, and those two are the dark side choices. Chad and I are usually the light side, so that might
Yeah.
tell you something about how this goes.
I was really hoping for more of a dark side influence on this one
Mm.
because there was so much of an influence in the Empire.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And people were comparing it, which is unfair. You shouldn't compare movies to other movies, but
What else are you going to compare movies to?
I mean, you should take it as it is, but
Right.
you should take the movie as it is on its own. But
I
I was
agree.
going to say, Chad, earlier, if Avatar 2 comes out and it's like, I mean, obviously they've got massive special effects and they're amazingly done based off of the first one. Are there any questions
I have
from
a
Avatar that you would have with the second one?
I don't really remember that movie that well. Didn't they wrap it up though? For the
They
most
pretty
part?
much, yeah, they wrapped it up in a neat little bow. So you have
Yeah.
no expectations coming into the second movie. So you can watch the second movie as it is. You can't come into this movie and take it as it is. You have to base it off of the hooks and everything like that they had in the first one.
I think most people, Jay, are going to side with you and Chad, but that doesn't make you guys more right.
I don't think they are, dude. I've been watching a
No,
lot of the news
me
feed.
being right is what makes me more right. But
It's not about being right or wrong. It's about being observant and knowing.
yeah,
It's pretty simple, actually. actually.
You know, it does bring up the point too. What the hell are all those critics smoking?
Oh, that say
Seriously.
it's good.
Yeah,
Say it's the best in the
90
series.
some percent rating on Rotten Tomatoes is ridiculous.
Well, they
Yeah.
said,
I
yeah,
liked the movie.
the critic reviews are rating it at 90 something percent, but the actual viewers are rating it
No, I
much
know.
lower, around like 65, I think
Right.
they said.
This
Agreed.
was rated down with episodes 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah, I
Possibly
know,
lower.
but why are the critics have it this high? That worries me a little bit about the Disney money out there.
Yeah.
The authenticity
Greasing
of
some
their
palm.
opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, this movie's gonna be great, guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, and these are critics that typically nail these kind of movies, right? Critics never give movies like these any kind of love. And you get a one that's so getting a 90 some percent. That's
Mhm.
crazy.
Okay, but if you look
Way to
at
go,
it,
Disney.
obviously we're fans in some degree or another. We know what's going on. We paid attention to the other movies and how the kind of things are going along in the story. If you're a critic on the outside who doesn't, you watch 10 movies a day and you just look at this for what it is, and maybe as a standalone movie, maybe it is good that way. You don't have the expectations of, hey, let's answer stuff from the last one in this one, or it's gonna suck.
Mhm.
It's
look
not
at it for the
supposed to
good
be a
facts.
standalone, though.
That's
the thing.
yeah.
Rogue One is a standalone.
Mhm.
Episode 8 is supposed to go along with episode
Actually,
7.
that's a good point. Imagine if you were just sitting and watching an hour and a half movie, and halfway through they were building up all of these plot points, of who is she and everything else, and in one sitting in this hour and a half thing of any movie, the things that you were excited about halfway through the movie weren't even a thing 3/4 of the way through. Where are you at the end of that? You know what I mean? That like I said, that's mostly what this comes down to for me, is just the lack of story direction that makes sense. I like I said, everything with the movie I don't necessarily mind, but make the whole story, make the plot follow that. Don't jerk me all over the place. you know what I mean?
Juggling Raiders. I think that hurts.
One spot is fine.
So, well, we seem to keep going every time I try to
Yeah, I
end
know,
this. Does
rambling.
anyone? It's my channel. We can ramble all I want. So,
I'm glad we started early tonight, so we weren't going to be on all night.
right. Is this why you
Sorry.
didn't want to start at midnight?
Right? Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end her here. Once again, thank you for joining the Thac0 Gamers, and thank you guys for all 5 of you for watching this live, and whoever happens to stumble across this later, please leave your comments about what you thought about the movie, where you think it ranks amongst the Star Wars movies that we have up until this point. Give us a like or a subscribe, or don't. We don't really care. And also, you can go over to some of our other videos, like the Lotro video, Lord of the Rings Online, and give us a thumbs down. Matt
But
and
if you do, that means you like Chad.
Matt and I have been promoting thumbs downs for the Lotro video because of
Yeah.
the Lotro community for that. We're trying to see how thumbs down we can make that. So I've actually had a few people that have commented on there that said they specifically came from another video just to thumbs down that because we asked them to.
Nice.
It's working.
So,
Dude, maybe we have the Force.
so thanks everyone for joining us, and we're gonna end it here. So
Sure we are.
Yeah, right.
Beep boop boop.
later.
See ya.
Am I supposed to hang up now? Or?
Yeah, is that?
No,
No,
you hang up first.
no, you hang up.